All right. Our special guest, Miss Stacy Wren, again, one of our silver consultants. She's also an IATN card holder. Please, Stacy, are you available to take the call?
Yes, I am available. Hello, everybody, all 36 of you. Can we turn some cameras on? This isn't like Archer Evolution training to see black boxes with names. Come on. If we can, I can turn my camera on. You guys can turn your camera on. I haven't washed my hair in 2 days. I'm in my pajamas working at home, right? That's the beauty of this business. So let's turn cameras on. Yay. That's much better. I want to give a shout out to Krista Wiley, who is my platinum and has taught me a lot about cruises. I have been in this business for 1.5 years. I got into this business because I love travel and I loved hospitality. I worked in 19 years on the Las Vegas Strip in corporate hell, and I was looking to be my own boss. I was tired of being number 1B. So I started my journey with Archer and Evolution. I had never been on a cruise ship before. I had no interest in cruising, and I thought they were for super old people, retirees, and fogies, boring. Well, that's exactly where the money is. I went on a Norwegian cruise up to Alaska. I'd never been there, and I learned about a lot of cruising. And from there, I've been on 9 cruises, and I've hosted a group of 30 down to Mexico, and I'm about to host another group of 30 next month in July on the original ship that I went on last year on the Bliss, on Norwegian Bliss. So let's drop in the chat how many people have booked a cruise. A cruise. Say me. This should be blowing up. Big money. Cruising is big money. Right? Not only is it big money, but it's a one-stop shop, right? Because everything's all-inclusive. It's an all-inclusive on water. So once you know kind of the ins and outs per se of cruising, it's easy to make good money, especially with groups. And drop in the chat, do you have a goal for cruising? How many of you have a goal of the number of cabins that you want to make? So if we don't have goals, how do we know where we're going and what we're achieving? My goal this year is to sell 100 cruise cabins, either part of a group or individually. So far this year, I'm at 56. So I have sold 56 cabins this year on cruises. Nikki says a shit ton. What is a shit ton? Let's quantify our goals and how many do you want to book? Shit ton to me would be 300 cruise cabins. That would be a shit ton. 100. Okay, that's better. 10 cabins. Awesome. Okay, so we have some good goals, 10 and 20 goals, 10 cabins and 20 cabins. So let's just look at a calculator really quick. If we're averaging a $350 commission on 20 cabins, that is Robin Holtzman, $7,000. Who would be ready for $7,000 extra in commission just from 20 cabins? Me, because Santa's coming and these damn kids are still hungry and they're not stopping, right? Okay, so one thing that I do inside my cruising is fundraising cruising. Fundraising cruising is a great way to both benefit the community that you live in and to profit on group cruising. So I don't have any slideshow today. This is just going to be ad lib, and then everybody can ask questions as is. So there's 2 components to fundraising cruising. The first one is a group cruise. Each cruise line wants you to book a group cruise, and there's benefits to booking a group cruise. Usually it's a minimum of 8 cabins. Okay, so on Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Azamara, so check to see what the group cruising limits are for the line that you want to go on. Once you have figured out the itinerary, and these are very simple. So someone tells you, I want to go on a cruise out of Miami with my family. You Google cruises that leave from Miami port, or you go to every single cruise line and you set the port as Miami and the departure day as where you want to go. And that's the quickest way for you to learn itineraries, is to just do some manual labor, some Google searching. So once you have a group cruise in mind, there's two things that you can do. You can pull group inventory. And this is a little bit specific. You'll have to go to each cruise line and do their individual training on how to book a group, but you hold the group inventory. So you pull 8 or 5 cabins out of Norwegian's inventory and you lock in that price. Usually you have 30 to 60 days to put a deposit on each cabin. If you don't put a deposit on each cabin, you lose that inventory and it goes back to the cruise line, right? Because they're only going to give you so many days to hold that inventory. Now, if you have the discretionary income to do so, you can place your own deposit on a group cruise, which would be typically from $25 to $50 per cabin. So if you want to hold, and I always have my calculator, if you want to hold 20 cabins times $50, be prepared to give Norwegian $1,000 of your own money. At this point, you can sell the group cruises up until final payment. So, for example, you hold group inventory on Norwegian today for next summer, for June of 2024 for Alaska. You're able to place a $50 per cabin deposit onto that. And you have all the way up until March or April, probably March, depending on when the final payment is due, to sell that inventory. So you're not stressed to sell it. Okay, so that is only if you can afford to put a group level deposit, and you can get that money back when final payment is due. So you call Norwegian, and you would say, I have booked all 5 of my cabins, or 10 or 20. They all have been paid. They all have a deposit. Refund me my group level deposit, and they will refund that to you. So once you have the group level inventory and you deposit it some way, somehow, either the client's doing it, which is best, right? Because then you're not on the hook, or you want a longer lead time to sell the cruises. Now you have your cruise, like your shell. There's each cruise line does the donation process a little bit differently. For Norwegian, as a group, you're going to get $100 onboard credit. Okay, so if you have a group with Norwegian, you're going to get $100 extra onboard credit just by booking in a group. This $100 onboard credit can be allocated post-cruise to a nonprofit. Okay, what is a nonprofit? It's a 501c3. For example, churches, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, YMCA, youth, food pantries, any charter schools are often 501c3 nonprofits. So any organization in the community that is listed as a nonprofit can receive this $100 credit post-cruise. Okay, that's on Norwegian. On Carnival does $4 per person per day. So if they're on a 7-day, it could be around $50 per person that Carnival will donate back to a nonprofit. Okay, that's the pitch on the group part. So the first we have the itinerary and the sailing, and then we have the nonprofit donation. And don't forget that when you're booking a group cruise, you're often able to lock in discounted pricing that is below. Jason, I'm going to answer all the questions at the end. So if you just want to hang tight, because it's hard for me to read and talk. So you can secure group level discounted pricing for a group cruise. So that example I gave you about the 5 cabins on Norwegian for next summer in Alaska, Oftentimes when you're booking that far out, the base cruise fare is discounted. So that's another benefit to group cruising. So you have the discounted cruise fare, you have the group level amenity, which is the $100 extra onboard credit, and then you have the donation back to the nonprofit, right? So the cruise lines that I know of that have this up and running are Carnival and Norwegian. They have a system in place, and you can call and get help on how to add this on to your group cruise. You can also Google Archer Travel Fundraising Cruise, and there's going to be a whole bunch of videos with Reggie and Ron Archer talking about how to facilitate this process. Okay. Now, the next part is, well, who is going to want to do this? Who is going to want to fundraise and cruise at the same time? There's two sides, just like the group cruise and the fundraising piece. Nonprofits can put together a fundraising cruise, like a church can come together and advertise that they want to do a group cruise that's a fundraiser going to benefit the church, or a social group can get together and support a nonprofit in the community that they want to support. So, for example, I'm part of a large Facebook group called Ladies of Henderson, and there's 1,200 women in the town that the lady that created the Facebook group. And I said, you know, I own a travel company. I have a program where we can do a group cruise that can benefit a nonprofit. And she said, great, let's do it. So we did a group cruise in May to benefit a nonprofit that she wanted to support. So if you have a group that is already traveling together, a family, a social group, a family reunion, a niche group like pickleball, wine, foodies, history, art, culture, anything like that, that's great, because they already want to go. And then to add on the fundraising piece is an extra benefit. When you go to a nonprofit and you want to pitch this idea to them, it's a little bit more complicated, because they want to know exactly how much you're going to donate. Oftentimes they want more than $100 per cabin. They want to know what they have to do to participate. So are we just giving you our name and saying we're going to cruise for the Red Cross to raise money for the Red Cross? Or do they have to put in time, effort, labor, marketing dollars, and all of this? So if you've never done this process before, I would recommend that you start with a social group or a family so that you can get it under your belt, right? And that there's no big, large organization that is expecting certain things. And this is the first time that you've done it. So the one that I did with Ladies of Henderson was very small. It was Catalina and Ensenada out of Long Beach. It was a very small cruise. But in July, next month, I'm doing the Norwegian Bliss for Alaska, and that's $4,500 a cabin. So you can kind of see there's a little bit of a difference, right? And when I've had conversations with nonprofits and churches, there's a lot of questions that they have and a lot of expectations. So I would suggest that you start with something small first. Right now I'm talking with a church that just sailed on their own before they met me, and they sent 150 people to Rome and the Mediterranean on a Norwegian cruise. So we're talking about doing this for next year. It's potentially 75 cabins. So let's say 75 cabins times $4,000, $2,000 a person. That's a $300,000 cruise. If we're looking at 75 cabins times $300, that's a $22,000 commission. That's going to be close to a full-time job to get all of these cabins booked, facilitated, who's getting what package, drink packages, why before they leave on the ship. And then there's cancellations, trip insurance, and facilitating all of the billing details of the group cruise, right? So the more money, the more work that you have to do. Now, we're not doing brain surgery in an operating room, but you have to be prepared and be a master at Excel spreadsheets in order to get this all done. Some of the things that you might want to keep in mind when you're fundraising cruise is have one sheet of paper put together for the leader of that social group or the leader of that nonprofit, telling them how much they're going to earn on the cruise, right? Everything needs to go in writing so that they know what to expect. And that shouldn't include cancellation. So if you're giving $100 for every Norwegian cabin booked and 2 cabins booked, you're not going to be responsible. Who are they going to come to and ask for that donation? Does that make sense, everybody? Put a thumbs up in the chat. Okay. So group cruising is a great way to, one, drive revenue to your bottom line, right? Because we're not in this for free and we need to make as much money as possible. 2, to create and impact change in the community, both from your point of view. So you're a travel agent that's creating change and making impact in the community through travel, and from their point of view. So they're doing something good. And 3, this is a long-term process, right? Most cruises are booked 8 to 9 months in advance. And especially a big group cruise is going to be much farther in advance. That's a pro and a con. A con because your money's not going to come till later. So you need to make sure you have a game plan to keep commission coming in. And also for them, it's a chance to sell and get everybody excited about and to really cross all your T's and dot all your I's. So the planning process is longer, which is not so good for the commission. It'll feel good when it hits, but then you have more time to work on the cruise, right? And getting a hold of everybody. Also making sure everyone has a passport, and just there's a whole bunch of different things, just like one regular cruise that you need to take care of for 75 people or 100 people. Right. So that's kind of the ins and outs of fundraising cruises. I'll open it up to questions. You can unmute yourself if you'd like, and we'll go from there. Let's see in the chat.
Is there a special class on how to do the Word Excel and how to go through this whole lots of work part, since you've never done it before?
It's the same process of booking one cabin as booking 10 or 100 as far as what the client needs to know and do. So they need to put a deposit, they need to sign a credit card authorization form, they need to be aware of when they have to pay their final deposit, they have to have a passport, and then you have to let them know, you know, these beverage packages is or is not included, Wi-Fi is or is not included. So, and excursions if they want to add anything on. So what you're doing for one individual on one cruise is the same for 50 people. You have to do that for every single person. So when I talk to social groups and nonprofits about fundraising cruises, I tell them, all you have to do is put out the materials that I give you, the flyer, the marketing materials, and I will handle everybody individually, like they're my individual client. And then they'll download the Norwegian app, they'll add all their specialty dining, they'll book their own excursions, and some people need to be handheld. And often with group cruises, you'll find people that have never cruised before. And so that's when you get a lot of extra questions. You know, where do I go? Well, how's the port and my luggage and my tags? And so there's no one quick guide on how to do this. You have to learn how to process a group cruise for each individual cruise line, and then you just scale that from there. So
do you just tell them that you need some time to get everything together, or do you just straight up say, I need you I need these questions answered before I even call the cruise line to make sure they have enough space for everybody and packages, special packages for everybody.
If I know that I'm going to go to a social group or a church, like for example, the church that I was telling you about is somebody that I'm in a networking group with. And he said, we always cruise every year for, as a church, and I just met you and now you're a travel agent. Maybe we can book our next trip with you. And I said, well, if you guys love to cruise, let me know. We could do a group cruise and we can add a fundraiser portion on there. And he said, okay, great. And then some time went by and I reapproached him and he said, yeah, we're going to go on this other cruise now. And then I think we can talk about it when we get back, probably somewhere warm, not Alaska or anywhere cold, even though it's not really cold in Alaska in July. So I went ahead and went on Norwegian because I know they have the $100 extra incentive for fundraising. And I picked 3 itineraries that I like, because this is a sales funnel too. So I don't just give them, where do you want to go in the world, unless they know specifically. So when I first had the first meeting with them, I sat down, I printed flyers for each of the 3 itineraries. We did Bahamas, Mexico, and Hawaii with different price ranges. So medium, low, and high. And I gave them that. And now they went and discussed it. And then they came back to me and I said, for every cabin that you book, you can earn $100 that goes to the church. So now we're on step 2, where we're kind of talking about, you know, more details in the booking process before they officially book with me.
I don't know how to approach or have the conversation to bring them to me. To, you know, like they know I'm a travel agent, but I don't know how to be like, yeah, I could help you. And, you know, this is what I could help you with. I don't know how to do that without being abrasive or pushy.
Well, it's best to have all of your, and this can go off into other sales channels about how to book and how to attract and do advertising and marketing, but you need to have your brand correct online. So what does your brand say for your travel business? Does it include cruising? And then you need to advertise. So somehow you need to get out there and get in front of people, whether it's posting on social media. I'm part of a networking group in Las Vegas that has 55 business owners in there. So every week I go and meet with them and I tell them about travel, and then they go out and spread the word. Or if someone in their family or circle says they want to travel, they refer them to me. So I have to find places to get new clients. And then in every conversation, I bring up cruises. And then I say, would you like to invite your friends and family? And that's how a group comes. Well, you know, if you invite your friends and family, we have 5 cabins anyway, we're able to add on a donation to support your favorite nonprofit in your community.
I'm going to need more. So I'm limited to that.
Nobody's limited. Everybody has access to the World Wide Web, to online networking groups, Chamber of Commerce. I mean, it's infinite, right? And you have, the more that you talk about your business, this is almost a fake it till you make it kind of thing. So remember, I had never even been on a cruise last year. And now I'm doing this. So if I could do it, everybody else can do it. And when I was on that cruise, I was posting on social media as if I had been on 50 of them. And people were commenting and saying, oh, I want to travel. I want to go on a cruise just like you. And I said, well, let's do it. I'm going to host a group cruise next year. I'm hosting it in July. And while I was on the boat, I went on the Norwegian portal and opened up and pulled 50 cabins. And I had no idea what the hell I was doing, how to pull group cabins, the price, until I made it, you know, and you got to get out there. I
didn't even know you could pull portals. I don't know, like I've been on over 34 cruises, but I've never had to sell a cruise. So I have that.
That's the best right there. If you've been on 34.
But I don't have others.
But each cruise portal is a little bit different, right? So if I told you the amount of times I called Norwegian, you would never want to do this. If I told you the amount of times that I messed up on my Ladies of Henderson cruise with Royal Caribbean, you wouldn't want to do this. And how many times I had to go back and kind of, you know, flub my message because I didn't fully understand. But now I got it. And not only that, I went with them I use my tour conductor credit. So when you book X amount of cabins, they give you a bonus commission, which is the value of one person. And that kind of varies depending on the cruise line. So when you're facilitating these, you really see like what questions they're asking and, you know, what they need when they're cruising. And if you've been on 34, you should already know. I also paid for, out of my commission on this Ladies of Henderson one, a cocktail party, a private cocktail party for 25 of us out of my commission so that I could have a photographer to take pictures for marketing and advertising. So I took a hit on my commission so that I could get marketing materials for later for groups. And so now I have all kinds of things that I can use to advertise and market, right? So this is a long-term gain, but now I'm having a conversation with that church about a $25,000 commission.
Yeah.
So, and then
I need to learn how to do what you're doing. Like to get, like, I think I could get it together. I could do the temples around here because I'm Jewish, but I don't know how to get in front of them and be like, hey, let's get a cruise together, and what to say to them to be like, yeah, you know, or answer all their questions. Because even though I've been on cruises, I've never asked those questions because I already knew them. But to answer other people's questions, I feel like that's a challenge.
Well, the group cruise part is one big part, right? So if you don't feel comfortable booking a group cruise, then a fundraising cruise is definitely not up your alley. So you need to understand how to book a group cruise. There's tons of trainings out there that you can do either via Archer or just directly through each cruise line. Each cruise line has like a master academy that you can go through, and a huge part of each one of them is group cruises, because just like it's big money for us, they want everybody to book a group cruise too, because it's big money for them and access to repeat clients. So cruise, and then try and find some either social group or just a group in general that might want a group cruise. And then you can add on the fundraising piece.
Right.
Right. And you can go to these nonprofits, churches, temples, whatever they are. And then you can say, have you ever cruised together as a temple? And then they go, well, yeah, you know, we go to the Holy Land every year. And you go, oh, well, have you ever explored going on a fundraising cruise where you can raise money for the temple and cruise together?
And then I would be stuck on how to say what.
You got to call Norwegian. I've called Norwegian 60 times.
Okay.
I mean, I don't even rely on chats and emailing in questions and doing all this. I just pick up the phone and I call Norwegian for every single little question. And that's how I learn, and that's how I fail. And then that's the best way to do it.
I wouldn't even know to do that until today. Like you're telling me things like I didn't even know was a possibility. So now I feel more comfortable.
I've called cruise lines.
Princess one, and then I'm going to do the Disney one.
Well, as far as group cruises go, you know, the more you learn, the better, right? Education is power, but you got to get out there and get the groups to book the group cruise, and then to add on the fundraising piece. Like if you're just training all day long, I haven't even done the College of Knowledge for Disney, and I've been in here for 18 months, right? But I feel like I'm somewhat of a booking pro with Norwegian, especially with group cruises. So one step at a time, one supplier at a time, and then you go to the next one, and on and on and on. Does that make sense?
I'll just be excited to sell my first cruise.
Questions?
Question. I believe it was probably the first one I wrote. What's the difference between a charter, like booking a charter cruise, and for fundraising one?
They're two completely separate different things. So charter is when you're booking a half ship or a full ship, which would include several contracts and deposits of, I would say 10 to 20% of the total cruise. At that point, I would definitely get Archer Travel involved. Having a group cruise of maybe up to 99 cabins is something that you can do on your own. And each cruise line will tell you, you know, after 99 cabins, this is considered a charter and it's another conversation. There's a lot more liability, contracts and things like that. I'm not doing charters, but I will be eventually. I just have to get those organizations or those groups underneath my belt and then figure out who's going to put up the deposit.
Got it. Thank you. Let's see, what was my other questions? Oh yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
For Princess, do you is it possible to actually do group bookings, or at least set up a group booking through their website or through the booking tool, or do you actually have to call them? Because I know calling is an option, but when I tried doing it through their website, it didn't let me. And I was told that
if you've never booked a group cruise, I would highly suggest calling it in for the first few times just to get the group booked properly, and then you can work on booking in the portal. I've booked several groups on Royal Caribbean. I am just now comfortable pulling group inventory at a group level, meaning 8 or more cabins on my own, and understanding the pricing difference. And you know, it's best just to call the groups department, and every cruise line has one. Just say, I'm a travel agent, I'm with Archer Travel, I'd like to see about opening up a group cruise.
Got it.
But if you don't have a group interested,
that's why
it's almost a waste unless you're willing to take money out of your pocket and promote and put that down as a group level deposit, and then you have a longer time to promote the group cruise.
Got it.
Can you suggest a nonprofit? Like to save the animals for people who want to go on a cruise to help fundraise to save animals.
The options are limitless. I mean, you can just Google nonprofits in Mountain's Edge, Las Vegas, or nonprofits in Las Vegas, or anywhere. They can be national nonprofits, or you can just go to a social group and ask them, what nonprofit would you like to support? Everybody has a giving heart. Most people do, right? And everyone knows, even if they're not giving right now, where they'd like to support. Cameron?
Yeah, thank you for all this wealth of knowledge they're sharing with us, Miss Stacy. When you do the group travel, are you collecting pay authorization for each member of the group, or are you just working with the one group member? What's been your experience with that?
So far, individuals, I treat everybody as an individual traveler inside the group. And then each person is different, right? And how they manage that process. So some people, like I'm doing a Virgin Voyages group cruise, which is not a fundraiser. And they're done, their flights are already done for January. Other people just put a deposit. They need to be handheld. But typically I am going to the leader or the Pied Piper and getting them to bring all the the audience, and then I individually handle everybody until I come across that group where one person wants to pay for everybody, and then I'll handle it with just that one person. And I'm becoming my own Pied Piper because of my social media marketing and branding. So eventually, I would say by the end of this year, I will no longer be seeking out groups. They will either approach me, or everybody will already be traveling with me, and I'll have 4 to 5 trips lined up for the whole year. And then I'll have my group already built, and I'm the Pied Piper, right?
How different?
You guys can hear my verbiage about all intentional.
Sure.
Right? I speak as if it's happening so that I am earning $150,000 a year, right? It's not happening right now, but I will be. And I am forecasting and saying what into existence, what will happen.
I kind of jumped on kind of late. How long have you been with Archer Travel?
Since January of last year.
Okay. And how much different is that the nonprofit coordinating the nonprofit versus the group travel? Are you dealing with one person then, the kind of the group leader for the nonprofit trips? Versus, is that different than
It
the
depends
group
on
travel
what kind of
situation?
nonprofit you're talking about. So if we're talking about a church,
Mhm.
then the head pastor would say, okay, everybody, we travel every year. Next year,
Mhm.
we're going to go on a cruise, and this is where we're going to go. And this is the itinerary. Contact Stacy to book.
Yeah.
Where they would just advertise a cruise, and that if you go on it, you can benefit the Red Cross, right? So they don't really have a specific individual audience. They're just sending it out to everybody. Or there's a social group and they are already together, and usually they have a Pied Piper, because when you have group cruises, whether it's a fundraiser or not, you're able to do things on board, like group dining. They can dine together. You can do excursions together. You can have private excursions depending on how many people are going. You're able to reserve meeting space if they want to do a seminar or a talk, or maybe a fundraiser, like a silent auction on the cruise, or
On
bring
board, yeah.
a special speaker. There's also TC credits. So like I kind of mentioned earlier, for every quantity in multiples, like that you book, or cabins, they'll give you the value of one extra person. So that can come to you in the form of commission. It can come to you in the form of buying them a cocktail party as a thank you. It can go to the group leader or the Pied Piper, and you can pay for her cabin. But all of that has to be decided up front, right? So when I did my Ladies of Henderson cruise, I didn't really have a lot in writing. I ended up paying out of pocket for the group leader's cabin because we didn't sell as many as we intended to cover. And there's just a lot of things that you got to watch when you're promising people things. You know, I paid for the cocktail party out of my pocket, but I knew that I would have clients for life, and I would have a photographer taking group photos for me. So anytime I wanted to advertise a group, whether it was land or cruise, I would have professional photos with me in them.
I have a question, but before I say mine, Barbara has a question here. Can you please tell me or repeat how the nonprofit gets paid? Directly to the church, nonprofit.
Yeah, it's best to facilitate the donation from the cruise line directly to the nonprofit, so that you're not involved, right? If you want to donate some of your commission or something like that, you're going to have some tax implications, which is probably going to be a write-off for your business, but it just makes things more complicated. Anybody else? Any other questions?
Yes, but give me a second to scroll up for it.
Okay, anybody else have questions while Jason's looking?
All the groups I'm in Mountain Jazz says no sell anything. So
I promise you, and I'm just going to stop you right here. There are infinite amount of possibilities. If I can do it, you can do it. You just have to go find them. They may not be on Facebook, but you got to go find them. You got to step out of your comfort zone and find them. You got to talk to them. Just email them.
Hi, I have a question. I want to book a cruise. Actually, I already did for, well, not completely. I put down deposits. My group of 4 or 5, it was 5 cabins on Royal Caribbean. After that, they have to pick out shore excursions and entertainment, I believe. And I'm wondering what kind of link I should send for them, and if I can get commissions for that, and if I can actually schedule entertainment, or is that something they have to do on their own?
until they're on the ship. And these are things that you should call the cruise line and ask, because each one is a little bit different. For shore excursions and dining, they need to download the app. So if they book on Royal or Norwegian, as soon as they book and put their deposit, they'll be able to put their reservation number in and log onto the app, at which point they can see all the excursions that are available, as well as the specialty dining. And some are available to book in advance, some you have to book on board. You just have to call the cruise line and ask them, and then that's how you advise the client. So I'll give you an example. On my Alaska group cruise, where I'm taking 30 people, 15 of them are just kind of random travelers, right? They're not connected. It's one family here, one couple here, one single traveler, and they handled all their excursions on their own. If they had a question, they asked me, and I called Norwegian to get more clarity for them. Even if it was waiting on hold for 45 minutes, are all part of one family, and there's one person. So this goes back to Cameron's question. There's one person that booked for every single person in those 15 people inside my group, including all of their beverage packages, their Wi-Fi, and their excursions. And she spent $32,000 to do this. So I told her that I will call Norwegian and get every option for excursions that she wants to do in advance, what day and time that they're available, and if they can hold all 15 people. And then if 2 people want to go do an excursion, a different one, I will handle that for her. So I handled everything because she spent $32,000 with me. And I don't care. You know, that's the customer service that I'm providing as a travel advisor. It just kind of depends. But each is terms of availability, you have to call the cruise line and find out when they should book and how they should book. And I think entertainment is booked on board.
And did you get commission on those excursions?
No, not with Norwegian, but other cruise lines do offer commission. It just depends. If it's really cruise line specific, and I could ramble on about this for 10 minutes, which I'm not going to do, because let's say, for example, Viking will pay you commission on pre-booked excursions, but only if you do it and not if the client does it.
Okay.
And so there's really not a correct answer here. You need to call the cruise line and find out if things are commissionable. Then I would tell the client, let me book that for you. I will handle everything for you, because there's money on the line. If there's no money on the line, I would tell them, oh, you're more than welcome to book any excursions in advance. You can see them on the Norwegian app. If you have any questions, let me know. Norwegian.com and search under excursions and kind of answer for them. And sometimes I have to call myself, and I'll just do that while I'm driving, or, you know, it's just being on hold while I'm working on other things. So understanding how the cruise line operates and how they pay, that will dictate your customer service, right? And regardless, if anyone has a question, you should address it, especially a booking question, right? Because you want them to come back to you. That's the ultimate end game here, is customer service and building repeat clients that bring you referrals. That's how you're going to make your travel business sustainable, is by having repeat clients that spread the word to their friends and family. So getting out there in the community and advertising your business is step 1. Step 2 is servicing these clients. And step 3 is having them come back time and time and time again. So but I know if I'm going to get paid off of it. And if I do, then, you know, I'll make the extra effort to get that money.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
I have something I'd like to share.
Okay.
So I did open up a Norwegian group because I had I'm a guy who loves Norwegian and he loves cruising. And I was like, well, I could open up this group because he always gets people to cruise with him. So anyways, but they both wanted, so I opened up the group and reserved like 8 rooms because I wasn't aware at the time that it was five rooms for a group. Mm-hmm. But anyways, I did that. And then they wanted, I didn't know this, the guy who booked with me both of them wanted spa balconies. well, that doesn't, like, they can be added to your group, but it's not, you can't get a special rate.
Mhm.
Did you know that?
Yeah, so this with each individual cruise line. So typically when you put a group together, you can do inside cabin, ocean view cabin, and balcony, and whatever unique names they are for each of those. And then they won't let you hold additional inventory or something that's nicer or bigger. If somebody books those, that's great. But then you have to have the cruise line move them into the group after the fact so that they get, the group amenities, and it counts towards your TC credit, which is that bonus commission that you get.
Right. And
A
so
lot
I
of
did
times they don't let you do that.
do what?
They don't allow you to pull inventory into a group and hold it initially, right? Or they don't have a special rate. But those individuals don't necessarily care. They're more focused on service and maybe some extra amenities and things like that. I think if they want a spa balcony or a suite or the Haven, they're going to go for that regardless if you're getting $75 off or not.
Well, I just so I went and tried to add them to the group and understood that there was a bonus. So there's two groups on, there's A and B, amenity wise, for groups. And then I went and then there's a bonus, which you can get them an extra $100 onboard credit, or you can get paid an extra $100 towards your commission. Anyways, and so I called Norwegian.
That's the $100 that we're talking about for the fundraiser, or you can allocate it to a fundraiser. So if you want to entice them by saying this is a group cruise on Norwegian, you can earn $100 extra per cabin onboard credit, or you don't tell them about that and you take that commission for yourself, or you say we can earn $100 extra per cabin and give it to a nonprofit in the community.
Well, I wanted to give it to them because I wasn't sure about the extra $100 commission. And then you did give a lot of good information about the fundraiser, so thank you. So I could do that. But what I did, I called Norwegian. But each room already had $150 onboard credit. But what the weird thing was, whenever I went and tried to add them to the group, they were going to lose that onboard credit just to get the additional $100 each onboard credit. And that didn't make sense. So it turned out like for the spa balcony, there was no really additional amenities because right now they're doing free at sea, and Norwegian's offering that to everyone. So, and my clients are.
They're all little intricacies that you have to know when you're booking a group cruise, regardless of the fundraiser piece or not, right? They all have terms and conditions and little loopholes that you don't know until you're actually in the thick of it, booking them. And, it just takes time and
with another cruise line and then drop that one. So
the thing about Norwegian is that the beverage package, the Wi-Fi credit and the shore excursion credit and 2 specialty dinings are already included. So while people think that the price is more expensive, sometimes it's not, or it's even less once you book on Royal and then you add a $400 beverage package, which is a waste. And depending on what the client's like, it's a little bit of an elevated shipping experience. So it's just about, understanding. I'll go on in Royal Caribbean and I'll go all the way to the end where I put the credit card number in to see all the actual pricing. And then I'll do the same thing on Norwegian and compare apples to apples. And then I'll present that to the client. And it just makes you look so much more knowledgeable. And then they're like, yeah, this process is so confusing. I don't understand. And you're thinking, I don't understand what the frick I'm doing either. But you just like, I know, don't worry, and I have we'll get it taken care of. That's it. And they go, okay, right. Let me tell my brother and he can bring his wife. And then before you know it, you're on your way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was just asking in chat, do you know the difference between a tour credit and or a head headquarter group? Have you heard those terminologies?
Yeah, headquarter group is usually put on by a large corporation like Travel Leaders Network, maybe Archer Travel or things like that. If you ever see that, don't ever pull group inventory into a headquarter group. And that has nothing to do with a TC credit or tour conductor credit. That's the type of group that you're booking into. And so that's why it's important to call in and initially book the group or hold inventory for 30 days, because the agent will be able to make sure that you don't, which is another travel agency like Archer. And
okay, because it said that
commission.
Yeah. It said you could get like $25 or $50 on board credits if you did the I think it was
you might
TC.
be talking about gap points. So
maybe
there's the group rate, and then there's gap points, which are they call them points, but they're really dollars for each cabin once you book a group. So they'll give you 2 gap points, which turns into $50, and you can either give it to them as onboard credit, or you can order chocolate covered strawberries for them to be delivered to the room, or a bottle of wine, and they don't even know about the gap points. I've done that before where I had a group and they had gap points, but I just spent them to give to them instead of giving them the money. That's different. Gap points are different than the TC credit. Gap points, I don't think you could. And that's different from the type of group. You might be thinking also of affinity group, which means people that are cruising together because they know each other, versus other types of groups. Like, I don't remember the name, but it's like a speculative group, I think Royal Caribbean calls it. And that is like, I'm holding the group inventory, and then I'm just going to sell it to anybody that I know. And it could be like Emily and Becca and Katrina, and they could all come on and they don't even know each other. Whereas an affinity group is people that have a commonality, a common denominator, whether it's they know me or they, whatever.
Okay, I didn't know that. Thanks.
All right, I think we have time for just one more question. And the question that I just saw in the chat was, Stacy, when you talk to these groups, do you ever mention that they will get a free cabin if they book X amount of rooms with you, or do you save that perk until later?
It really depends. You have to know your audience. So like I said, I like to go with them to facilitate and make sure that everything's taken care of. And I just like to not be in Las Vegas. I like to be traveling, and I like to be a product of the product, and just the more I travel, the more bookings that I get, because people are always seeing me travel. So oftentimes I want to use that for myself. Or if I know that we're going to get enough TC credits to cover the Pied Piper and me, then I'll offer it to them. With the church that I'm working on, if 75 cabins booked, I'm going to get at least 5 TC credits, which is going to be probably 20 grand, 20,000. 3 cabins for free, in addition to the fundraising piece, the dollars. I'm going to go with them. And then I have 1 extra cabin, which I'm probably going to give to the guy that introduced me to his church, even though he said he wanted to give up his cabin for a family in need inside the church that had a rough year, which I was like, no, you're going to go for free. I don't want to hear that. So I have 5. So it really, you just got to know your audience. I don't bring it up in the beginning as a hook, line and sinker, unless I absolutely have to, meaning I don't think this group is going to book with me unless the leader goes for free and she brings everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacy. You guys, let's give it up to Stacy in the chat box. Isn't she amazing? I love her to pieces. I can't wait to give her a big old squeeze in a couple of days. I am so thankful.
Squeezable.
Huh?
I'm definitely squeezable.
I know you are.
Thank you, Stacy.
All right, you guys. Thank you.
And just remember, I'll close it out with this. Most of this information I taught myself by calling the cruise lines and doing trainings. Okay, I'll leave you with that. If I could do it, you can do it. Make it rain on yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Remember that this is your business, right? Remember that you are in control of your success. Remember that if you need answers, you need whatever, right? What did Stacy do? She called up the cruise line. She called them. She asked questions. Don't be afraid to call the suppliers. Don't be afraid to really put that I'm a professional travel agent and I am going to act like one, right? You guys, again, my name is Krista Wiley, our special guest, Stacy Wren. You guys, it's been an amazing time. I will have this recording up for you guys shortly. Have a great day.